Once upon a time. Welcome to Australian Book Lovers, your destination for imagination.
Australian Book Lovers acknowledges First Nations peoples and recognises their continuous connection to country, community and to culture. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and honour the sharing of traditional stories passed down through generations. We're committed to a safe and inclusive welcome for authors and readers of all cultures and backgrounds, including people of LGBTQIA+ communities and their families.
A big warm welcome to everyone and a huge thank you for joining us for the Australian Book Lovers podcast, episode 118, which is absolutely brilliant. Mm-hmm. Our mission is to bring fabulous Australian and Indigenous literature that spans a whole range of genres to book lovers around the globe, as well as fantastic resources and information for passionate authors looking to write their next bestseller. I'm Veronica Strachan, aka V.E. Patton, fantasy, sci-fi, memoir, picture book writer, voracious reader of many genres, your founder and co-host, coming to you today from Wurundjeri Woiwurrung country.
And I'm Laurie Bell, a science fiction and fantasy author, reader, writer, short stories, flash fiction, Friday fictioneers, a bit of everything, and your co-host for today for Australian Book Lovers, coming to you also from Wurundjeri Woiwurrung country. And it is so far kind of a nice day. I think we might finally have winter shifting.
It could be. We've had a couple of sunny days this week, which is a little tempting, yes, but not really enough to dry the washing out here at the Macedon Ranges. So, yeah. I left one lot out for a whole day and it didn't dry, so I had to bring it in and put it in front of the fire again anyway. But that is okay.
Hello, Melbourne, winter.
Hello, Melbourne. We do love Melbourne. It's looking a bit grey and cloudy up my way, but not to worry. Anyway, here we are, back to an episode because we've had a couple of fabulous writers' specials. We had the lovely Helen Edwards, Nikki Lee and Hayley Walsh talking sequels, and we had Dr. Rachel Matthews taking us through
a workshop, which was
fabulous
amazing.
Workshop. That was exciting with a fabulous audience of writers emerging, and some of them were emerged. I'm not sure. They, were established and they were there listening.
Amazing. That's what they were.
Yes. And of course, because they attended, they were lucky enough to get some giveaways, some books from the fabulous Transitland. So thank you, Transitland. That was fabulous. And the writers there. Yep. But here we are. We're in episode 118. Who are we speaking to, or who are you speaking to? Tell us a little bit about that.
I am speaking to Catherine McNamara, who is an amazing person, and she was actually speaking to me from Italy. So we had a very transcontinental chat that was going on in the middle of summer for her, our winter. So that was fun. She's a fantastic speaker, and her books are all short stories. They're collections of short stories. So we had a great chat about short stories and what makes a good short story. So that I'm really looking forward to playing that one for you today. I'll jump in. She's the author of The Carnal Fugues, which is the one that we were talking about, but also Love Stories for Hectic People, which is there's a great story behind that one too. The Cartography of Others and Pelt and Other Stories. So it's a great little catch up that we had this week, and I can't wait for everyone to listen.
Beautiful. And, as word nerds, we love all of that kind of stuff. Let's talk to authors about, what they're doing. And everyone is so different. That is what I really enjoy. And it was a big learning because when I started doing creative writing, I thought, I'll learn how to do it and that'll be how you do it. Yeah. But no, because some people like plotting, some people like pantsing, some people like somewhere in between, some people don't even know what that is and they write when they can, some people write between 9 and 12, and some people wait for the muse, some people say, no, the muse will come when I tell it.
Yep. It's amazing. I think with writing in particular, it's like reading. You jump in when you're inspired and when you're ready and when you want to consume that content or create that content. So everyone, and of course, as we know, readers are so completely different in genres and interests and what keeps them going. So there's enough readers out there for all sorts of writing, I think.
Indeed, there are plenty. And I just thought to give us a bit of a word note. I'm going to share some words with you from the fabulous John Koenig's Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows, because sometimes I just need to fall in love with words again. You know, when you've been doing, sometimes work words can be a bit monotonous.
Dry. Yeah. Dry.
Or they can be very niche. Anyway, I thought this was nice. Nighthawk. So it's a noun, a recurring thought that only seems to strike you late at night.
Ooh, that would be very fitting for a lot of writers, I think.
Yes.
I wonder if there's a shower equivalent.
A shower sparrow, maybe. There you go.
There you go. Interesting.
Yeah, so he describes it as an overdue task, a nagging guilt, a looming future, but I would add also an idea that just springs to mind, and it often does, which you sometimes manage to forget for weeks, only to feel it land on your shoulder once again, quietly building a nest. Absolutely. So Nighthawks is a famous painting by Edward Hopper. He used to do the cafes and things, the kind of 1920s or 1950s kind of stuff, depicting a lonely corner diner, there you go, late at night. In logging, a nighthawk is a metal ball that slid up and down a riverboat's flagpole to aid pilots in navigation. Completely different. There you go. Interesting. Yes. Wow. So that was one. I had 3. So let's give you, this was a good one. Heartmoor. So as a fantasy writer, you're going to love this. The primal longing for a home village to return to, a place that no longer exists, if it ever did. The fantasy of finding a way back home before nightfall, hustling to bring in the cattle before the rains come, picturing a cluster of lanterns glowing on the edge of a tangled wood, hearing the rattle and hiss of meals cooked over a communal fire, finding your place in a crowded longhouse made of clay-packed thatch, where you'd sit and listen to the voices of 4 generations layered into a canon, telling stories of a time when people could still melt into a collective personality and weren't just floating around alone.
Ooh, I like that.
Isn't that lovely?
That's nice. Heartmoor. I like that.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So from heart plus more, to tie a boat to an anchor. There you go, Heartmoor.
So returning home. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, so that's nice. I mean, that is, a lot of fantasy does get set in that kind of middle-aged, medievalish kind of thing. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, I'm going to give you furosha. This is my third one.
All right.
Because this is what I was looking at today. I thought, that's appropriate. A noun for the eerie tranquility of fast-moving clouds who pass through your patch of sky like a drifter stepping into your entryway to warm up for a minute, ruffling the ice from his beard before he nods his gratitude and turns back into the air.
Oh, that's so descriptive. I love the breakdowns. Yeah, that is lovely. Yeah.
Furosha.
Nice. Picture that. That's fantastic.
The eerie tranquility of fast-moving clouds.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. So there you go. Thank you, John Koenig, for 3 more beautiful words, made-up words that should find their way into the English language, because we don't always have that sense. But anyway, there you go. All right. Have you got some news? Go on.
I do have some news, but first of all, I want to ask you, how did your little jaunt to Sydney go?
Oh, my little jaunt to Sydney. Yes. It was fabulous. So Sydney Authors Inc., Hayley Walsh, Maria Piefrino, Conchita Santiago, and the other fabulous Sydney Authors Inc. people who I hadn't met but who were equally as welcoming. That was lovely. Great little place. There's a little market outside, and it was a beautiful room, and we chatted about words and books and publishing, and I was interviewed. It was really lovely by Maria, which was great. Yeah, but it was nice to be able to give people a hug that you'd only ever met kind of online or on video and that kind of thing, and it was delightful. And I spent time
Any
chatting.
Interesting questions, curly questions?
Probably not curly ones, but it did. Some of them were challenging enough to make me think about the way I ask other people to share.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes, yeah. So, and of course, a book that I don't talk about a lot is Breathing While Drowning, which is the memoir that I wrote, which kind of covers me recovering from the death of my second daughter. Yeah. And so we covered a bit of that, and that was interesting, and people were very compassionate about,
Yes.
me sharing that and understanding that, you recover from grief as long as you need to, and it really never goes away, but you find a place to live with it, and it's different for everybody. So that was interesting to sort of, review that kind of thing and reflect on the book that kind of started me off on creative writing.
The whole journey.
It was the whole journey, because I really wanted to write a fantasy series, but I had this little child on my shoulder going, Mum, write my story, Mum, write my story, Mum, write my story. All right, I'll write your story. And really, it was cathartic, and I needed to get that out. So that was good. So it was lovely to
I think a lot of memoirs kind of are that feeling of just needing to get something out.
Yes.
And whether people read it or not, I don't think that's the purpose in a lot of cases. It's just needing to express it and get it down.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So it was nice to spend some time thinking about my books and why I write and how I write and those kind of things. So that's good.
Oh wow, that's great.
Oh, it was nice. Yes, it was beautiful. And of course, Sydney.
And you've got another one coming up.
Yes, they have. So Hayley Walsh is going to be interviewing Ashley Calagian-Blunt, who wrote the fabulous, thrilling, and very dark mode, which is set in Sydney. Maybe look around corners when I went past laneways. But good luck, Ashley and Hayley. I'm sure that will be good. But fabulous group of people, and writers will come out of the woodwork to come and chat about writing, and people who come from a long way away, which was just lovely to see. And of course, close, because Sydney, lots of writing bodies in Sydney.
And I think we'd like to hear that everyone else is going through a journey, whether it's the same journey, but the confusion, the length of time that writing takes, the unknowing part of writing, which is waiting on whether you're going to get a response, waiting forever. It helps to know you're not alone, even though everyone's journey is very slightly different.
Yeah, absolutely. And already a couple of people put their books up on the website, which is fantastic.
Oh, great.
And also met a couple of people who have podcasts. So we'll see if we can organise some, back and forth on those. There's
podcasting. I love it. Let's do it. Invite us on. We can waffle about anything.
We will. We're good. Just we'll talk nerding for hours and hours. So there you go. Beautiful.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I do have a couple of little pieces of news.
Okay, let's stop and go. Bring on the news.
Yes. There was an update on the ASA website this week on latest AI developments, and there was a hearing that was done this week in regard to both Amazon and Google, and their answers are infuriating.
I read that. That was one of my news things too. That was terrible.
Yes, exactly. So do read it if you're an Australian writer or creative, because they are really following these cases closely and supporting of authors. But there was one bit I wanted to read because it makes me so angry, but at the same time, it's like, this is what we're dealing with. And it's tough being an Australian creative at the moment, because we are a bit little, and we are not big voices in the industry, so to speak, compared to your Amazons and your Googles, for sure. So throughout the hearing, the argument run by both Amazon and Google was that it was necessary to include an enormous amount of copyright works and data in their training data sets to ensure their generative AI models would be less biased and more effective. And Senator Tony Sheldon, the chair of the Select Committee, said that it defies belief that you are unable to tell us whether Amazon has used the works of Australian creatives across Audible, Kindle, and Prime Video to train your AI models. Your answers provided no comfort to the people worried about getting ripped off as a result of their life's work. If I was a writer or a voice actor listening to this, I would be terrified. And I think he stated that really well, in the sense that, and as we were just talking about memoirs, these are some personal stories. These are deeply personal. How dare you go and steal those for in AI?
Yes. Without any acknowledgement, without any payment.
Absolutely.
That's the thing. If people choose to go, yep, you can use my thing, fantastic.
Absolutely.
But
and if you're getting the recognition,
copyright people in Australia, copyright protects us, but they are ignoring it.
Yep. So I'm very fascinated in following how the stories are going and what's going to happen out with the outcomes of a lot of these hearings at the moment. I know there's a New South Wales hearing happening at the moment as well in regard to AI. So yes, continue to watch this space and know that that the Australian Society of Authors are advocating very powerfully, and same with Copyright Agency advocating very powerfully for those copyright protections.
Yes. So join if you can, become a member, support what they're doing, share the news that they're doing, because the ASA in particular do news and advocacy. They've got, rates of pay. They have some great events, which are a couple of other things that I had. So I'm going to click out of that.
Jump in.
So the other thing I've got from the ASA, two things that they do regularly, and one is virtual literary speed dating.
Now, I've done that before.
And I know you've done that. So I was just going to ask you about it. So the next one is the 30th of October and the 1st of November. And if you've got a completed manuscript, then what you can do is get a 3-minute opportunity to pitch to Australian publishers and agents. And you choose which one you'd like to pitch to. You make sure your work's a good fit. And then you get a 3-minute on your Zoom. You do an elevator pitch. And if they want to see your full manuscript, they'll let you know. So you have to become a member because this is a members-only event. And
and if you do their Pitched Perfect workshop, which it's a bit of a sales pitch there, but doing the Pitch Perfect workshop, which I did, is really, really, really fascinating for how you can target talking about your book to someone in the industry, which is very, very nerve-wracking.
But before I say, I want you to share your experience. Pitch Perfect, which is the second thing, for Friday, starting the 30th of August. So I will get this episode out as quickly as I can. 30th of August, 6th, 13th and 20th of September, do your Pitch Perfect. That leads into your literary speed dating. So, Laurie,
so you do get a chance to do the literary speed dating if you haven't done the workshop, but the workshop attendees do get a bit of a priority booking, so you can jump in first and get the time frames that you want. So that's probably the only thing there. Plus they give you a lot of information on how to pitch, so it is really useful. It was so nerve-wracking. I found that I have a terrible memory, and I spent a good 6 weeks practicing my pitch by literally walking around the house, repeating it over and over and over and over and over again, because you only get 3 minutes. And so you want to get all that information in without all those ums and ahs or reading with your text in front of you, which is more comfortable. I find I'm far more comfortable if I've got text in front of me, but having to just pitch out to I can't even remember now what my pitch was. That's how
so good. You know what? Because you know that I did a pitch to HarperCollins, which was part of the Australian Writers' Centre. It was part of writing your novel. So why don't we promise to have a practice, and next episode we'll give each other our pitch, and because mine had to be much shorter. I only had a minute, so you had 3 minutes.
That's scary.
That was, and look, I because it was only a minute, I didn't do too bad. I was pretty happy with it. I think I stuffed up one bit, a little bit, but anyway, I went on for that.
I think the best thing to come out of it that I understood is that they're not watching or listening to your pitch hoping that you fail.
No,
they're
interested in your story.
To succeed. Exactly.
Yes,
and
they
so
are humans, these publishers
our nerves,
and agents.
our nerves shut us down, and it's like, I'm so afraid that you're going to judge me for it. But they're not wanting to judge you they're not judging you as a person. They want to hear about the book. And they don't want you to fail in your pitch. And once I had that in my head, it did make the process a bit easier from that point of view. It's like, I know you're not hoping that I'm going to stuff this up.
Which is good. All right, so that's a promise. So episode 119, we will do pitch practice.
All right,
you and I share what we pitched.
Our pitch, yes.
Okay, good.
Okay.
So, any more news? Have you got any more news?
Yes, Booktopia has actually now been bought by DigiDirect, which is a bit of a. There were a couple of different options of different booksellers that were pitching to purchase Booktopia, so it is more of an electronics DigiDirect it's more electronically driven. But they do say that, well, the administrator says that the deal will enable the business to immediately resume trading, which is a good thing. But I have not been able to find anywhere online where it might say anything in regard to people that have pre-ordered, if they haven't received any funds back, or for authors or retailers. So I think that's still being discussed, and whether that, who knows what the outcome of that is going to be. But at least it does mean that Booktopia is staying up online. It is still being able, so you can still purchase your books going forward. But yeah, maybe give it a little bit for the dust to settle, perhaps.
Get the logistics happening.
Yeah, but it's good to know that for an Aussie, okay, online, but for an Aussie bookstore, that there has been, it looks like at this point, saved.
There will be some kind of, and did you direct Australian company?
I did have that information in front of me, actually. I believe it is.
You'd like some of the money to keep flowing in and around, as we were talking about Australian creatives.
They said about the acquisition that it would be good that it is being kept in Australian hands.
That's good.
So,
well, we wish them all the best, and please don't stuff it up.
No, no, exactly. And of course it was Book Week this week.
Yes.
In Oz. So the littlies and the bigger littlies and all the librarians and teachers no doubt had a great time dressing up as their favourite book characters this week, and just being able to talk about books and having authors come in and talk to them at schools. That was my favourite parts of school, with having the authors come in and talk to us. So it's a fun week, and I hope everyone had their enjoyment with their dressing up as characters. I know it can be quite stressful for parents. So again, sorry about that, parents, because finding outfits is a nightmare. And I just wanted to read very quickly. So on the australiareads.org.au site, they've actually got some library stories at the moment, and the real strength that they're pitching in one of the articles that I absolutely loved was just reminding everyone of the benefits of school libraries and how important they are. So they aid in literacy development. They teach students how to identify and mis- and disinformation, so how to identify the wrong stuff, and to navigate AI, which is such a big thing at the moment. They provide access to collections that support school curriculum. They foster lifelong love of learning. They offer an inclusive learning environment. Libraries are amazingly important in schools. I mean, just in general in the public, they're amazing, but in schools in particular, it was my home. I loved going into the school library in my lunch hours and just living in there with books. It's they're so important, and so many schools don't want to get on my soapbox, because I will get on my soapbox, but so many schools are dropping libraries as such an important resource, or they're closing them down, or they're turning them into STEM centres, which is lovely for the science part and the maths part, but to lose a little spot where kids can go to read, it does my head in. So for the schools that are really pushing their libraries, that is amazing, and well done to them. And librarians are so important, especially librarian teachers.
Definitely. Well, because of course, and I'm letting you speak because, of course, in my time, we didn't have libraries in primary schools.
Really? Oh, my goodness.
No, we didn't. By the time I got to high school, our high school had a small library. But it wasn't a thing. So, and we didn't have Book Week. So we've got to remember I went to school in the olden days, Laurie.
Still, it shows that even over the space of both of our lifetimes, that things have changed so much. So libraries were huge for me, and now they're disappearing from schools completely. So and the NAPLAN results came out in the last week or two, and talked about that the reading and literacy has dropped across school-age children. So it's massively important having those libraries there and those resources, and just someone to talk books and where do I find and how do I find important. Anyway, sorry, rant over.
No, that's all right. I absolutely agree with you. And one more
Yes.
little article I've got, which I saw on the ABC News website, is about two Australian authors. And I'm just going to bring it here so that it doesn't look like I am doing that. And it was Catherine Dovey and Alicia Sometimes. So the article was Astronomy Meets Literature in New Books by Catherine Dovey and Alicia Sometimes, exploring their humanity. So jump onto the ABC News. It was written by Nicola Heath and Claire Nichols for The Book Show, which of course is another fabulous podcast. ABCRN's The Book Show is a weekly literary interviews and news and analysis of the publishing industry, a must listen for lovers of fiction. But what I loved about this was that Catherine Dovey in particular was working on the final instalment of a new short story collection, Only the Astronauts. Short stories, as you mentioned, when she was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. Then the stories about NASA's Voyager 1 and 2, the twin spacecraft that launched in 1977, and of course is still exploring space to this day. And she found during the stressful time of her diagnosis, she pondered about the Voyager twins and, you know, the spacecraft going dark, having to turn off the instruments one by one, but they're still out there having these adventures. So she has written, you know, all of these bits and pieces and talked to scientists, and it's was just amazing. It was a really good read. And then on to, and the trouble is, of course, I'm, you know, when I'm researching and preparing for this podcast, I think I've added about 6 or 8 books to my Christmas want list.
It's an ever-growing pile. It never actually goes down.
It never goes down because the children go, oh, what book do you want, Mum, for Christmas? I just happen to have a list here. So I've added Only the Astronauts by Catherine Dovey, which looks fantastic. And the other person that they spoke to was poet Alicia Sometimes, who's working on a collection of poetry inspired by her love of space when she too received a cancer diagnosis. So, and she found comfort in her literary connection with the stars throughout her illness. So, you know, she fell in love with astronomy as a child, but was, here we go, but was turned off the field by a science teacher in high school who told her that astronomy wasn't for women.
Ooh. Okay, another soapbox.
Another soapbox.
No, and, I'll hold myself back.
I will say that, you know, a friend and I, who was male, did an astronomy elective when we did, that was in physics in HSC in the olden days, which was, what do they call it now? Year 12 now, but we did. So, yeah. I love that. I wanted to be an astronaut, but of course I didn't have the eyesight. That was the thing. You never get into it. I got really bad eyesight. I wear contact lenses.
One of my friends is an astrophysicist, and I tell you what, women can do science.
And
women can do space, and women can do brains. Don't. Yep. Okay.
Makes
sorry.
me mad.
Coming
Anyway,
down.
There you go. But instead, she decided to pursue a life of writing, but says there are parallels between astronomy and poetry. When you think of the big physical concepts, quantum physics or entropy, I love entropy, it's just amazing, or the Big Bang Theory, they're quite abstract, even though they're based in real science. And poetry is also very abstract, and they're a perfect fit. So her book is called Stellar Atmospheres. And again, another one to go on the Christmas wish list. So that's Alicia Sometimes. Really recommend you read the whole article, people. And you find news about writing and inspiration about books anywhere.
Yep. Yes, absolutely. Which is it will be a nice segue into our interview when we pop that one through, because of course we were talking about inspiration for writing short stories. So
perfect. Yeah. All right, we better get on and get through some of these book spotlights. Because we have
Speaking of more books. The Photograph by Diane Clarke. So that's a mystery. So at the outbreak of World War II, 3-year-old Carol Hunter is evacuated from London. Her earliest memories involve living alone in Wales with her former host, now adoptive mother Gwen. She is told she is an orphan and an only child. Yet Carol has always sensed that she had a brother. And despite being told he doesn't exist and no records of him can be found, spends her adult life trying to find him. In 1995, aged 59, she discovers a photograph of herself, her birth mother, and a mystery boy standing together on a railway platform during the chaos of the evacuation operation. It reignites her dreams of finding her sibling. In 2020, in the midst of a worldwide pandemic, Carol's daughter Megan takes up the search. When she, too, is confronted by an image that, for her, is unwelcome and foreshadows an inconvenient truth, she is faced with a stark choice. Acutely aware of her mother's lifelong torment, she must choose to either ignore the message hidden in the photo or reconcile the secrets of her own past.
Let's read about Diane Clarke's bio. So, before completing her debut novel, The Photograph, Diane Clarke's writing journey began with short stories. Hey, I think that's a bit of a
I know, right? It's perfect.
So, her writing credits include flash fiction and short stories published in several anthologies, including success in the Sydney Hammond Memorial Short Story Competition. A Life Lesson was second place in 2019, and Courting Danger was longlisted in 2020. Though happily settled in Brisbane, Australia since 1996, much of her inspiration comes from the UK. Using stunning locations as the backdrop, her novels feature restless women craving truth, identity, and love. She propels her female protagonists into complex family predicaments where they must deal with the agony of missing siblings, absent fathers, or ethical dilemmas. When not writing, she takes long walks in the Australian bush, upcycles vintage furniture, spends time with family and friends, and spoils her cavoodle puppy. There you go. So you can find Diane at www.dianeclarke with an E author, Diane 1N, Clarke with an E author.com. And she's on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn as Diane Clarke author. So there you go.
Amazing.
The photograph.
Not only, it always astounds me just how many different journeys authors go on, but just the backgrounds of there is so many different work and career, and you bounce around we bring a lot to our stories, don't we?
We do. We absolutely do. It's, what pours out on the page is filtered through all of that. Yeah.
Wonderful. So speaking of,
yes,
now we get a picture book. This is exciting. So Happy Millionth Birthday by RWR McDonald and Alexandra Colombo. So this is a picture book like no other. Rich with character, humour and cheekiness, this story brings to life what every child wants: more birthdays and even more presents. A brilliant birthday gift for young readers and a story for the whole family can enjoy together. This is not another cute birthday story. Find out what happens when Jack's wish comes true and he celebrates a birthday every single day. Will Jack Wolf learn his lesson, or will he think of a new way to have fun? The story will keep you guessing until the end.
There you go. It has an absolutely delightful cover too, so that's fantastic. And the bio, of course, is the delightful RWR McDonald, who is Rob. He is an award-winning Kiwi author living in Melbourne with his two daughters and one Harry cat. Author of the award-winning Nancy series, The Nancys and Nancy Business. So Rob is also a creative writing tutor and host of QWS, which is Queer Rights Sessions podcast. Lots of podcasting people today.
Fantastic.
So that is a spin-off from the fabulous Words and Nerds podcast. Queer Rights Sessions, in partnership with Blarney Books and Art, is a project brought to us by the fabulous R.W.R. McDonald, author of The Nancys, with the express goals of aiding the visibility and celebrating LGBTQIA+ Australian and New Zealand authors and writers, with a focus on intersectionality, particularly Black, Indigenous and people of colour and trans authors, which is just wonderful. So we've given you lots of reading prompts today, people. So listening prompts rather. So lots of good podcasts to have a look at. Rob now writes picture books by day and whodunit mysteries by night. However, he says, except all of his characters seem to be completely out of control. So yeah, that is the delightful Happy Millionth Birthday by RWR McDonald.
Wow.
Oh, and Alexandra Colombo. Sorry.
Yes.
Obviously the illustrator. Yep. Yep.
And our third book for today, so Tipping Point by Dinuka McKenzie, which is a thriller. A suicide, a shooting, and a reckoning decades in the making. Weeks from Christmas in the sweltering heat of summer, Detective Kate Miles' estranged brother Luke Grayling returns home to Essendon to find a childhood friend, Aunt Reed, dead by suicide. Within days of the funeral, another young man, Marcus Roundtree, is found shot dead in the back paddock of his property. Almost 20 years ago, Luke, Ant, and Marcus were best mates in high school, and now 2 of the 3 friends are dead. A tragic coincidence, or is there something more sinister connecting the 3 men? When Luke is identified as a person of interest in Marcus's death, Kate once again finds herself in the middle of a media storm, sidelined from the case and battling accusations of conflict of interest. As press attention deepens and uncomfortable truths about Luke's personal life and past events come to light, Kate is forced to contend between the loyalty to the police force and the bonds of friendship and blood. Wow. So, and of course, praise for Dinuka McKenzie. How lucky are we to have Dinuka McKenzie, Hayley Scrivener, and author of Dirt Town?
And Dinuka McKenzie has talent to burn, says Dervla McTurnan, author of The Murder Rule, who lives in WA but writes murder about things in Ireland. And I've read some of her 2 books. I can't remember, what is it, The Murder Rule or something? Anyway, there we go, The Murder Rule, yes. So really good. So bio, and of course we've chatted with Dinuka on the Australian Book Lovers podcast, and you think I would have looked that up before we got on this morning, but not to worry. And Dinuka is just fabulous. We chatted with her when her first book was out. She's an Australian writer and the author of the Detective Kate Miles crime series, and published in Australia and the UK. So this is 3 books now in Kate Miles. I love the story. So Kate's pregnant, like a week from giving birth to a child in the first one, and look, it's just fantastic. It's really good. It's really good. It's like, there's so much, I think, in terms of she delivers the you were talking about how you can see in the descriptions how you really love that. This character feels so relatable. Whether you've had children or not, you can see her exhaustion. You can feel her wanting to do the right thing, but Dinuka has a great way of bringing these characters to life. So yeah, I love her style. Anyway, it was a little bit fangirly. Oh, sorry about that, Dinuka, but there you go. So Dinuka is the winner of the 2020 HarperCollins Australia Banjo Prize, and her writing has been shortlisted for the Fabulous Sisters in Crime Davitt Awards, the Bad Sydney Crime Danger Awards, and longlisted for the Rochelle Prize, and highly recommended in the Australian Crime Writers Association Louis Award. Her short fiction has appeared, there it is again, in the 2022 Dark Deeds Down Under crime and thriller anthology. And Dinuka lives in southern Sydney on Darawal country, and you can find her at Dinuka McKenzie, that's DinukaMckenzie.com.
Fantastic. We've got so many amazing
we have got so many
spotlighting. It's just brilliant, isn't it?
Yes,
love the talent.
There's a huge long list, and there's lots of fabulous books coming up too, so keep an eye out. I know we only give you 3 a week, but it's just easing them into the universe, which is good.
And encouraging everyone to read piles so high.
Absolutely. And a book
they are
for
likely
every
to kill us
occasion.
if they fall over on us.
Yes. Look, we've given you a mystery, we've given you a thriller, we've given you a beautiful children's picture book. So jump on to the AustralianBookLovers.com and have a look at all those books. We have books in every genre, and don't just have a look, but click and buy one and support an Australian author. Don't forget to review. And if you are an author, we list your books for free. I know that's mad, but it's what we're doing. So please jump on and list your books and short stories for free, and you'll see that the website is slowly being updated. A couple of pages looking fabulously new at the moment. And I'll be getting the poetry page up as soon as I get all the others done. So there you go.
And of course, if you want to subscribe to our newsletter and also to the podcast, you absolutely would be absolutely fantastic, not only for us, but also with the newsletter. We do give books away. So we have some fantastic books that I'm sure you've got a giant pile of them there that we're just ready to give away. So do subscribe to the newsletter, and also, to the podcast. You can share the love and support for us, the ABL podcast, with a once-off or monthly donation with as little as $3 a month, and you can cancel at any time. There's no commitment, but it certainly helps us pay for postage.
postage and the platform and that kind of thing. We're not even close to it, but that's okay. We're doing it and we love it. And look, we've got lots of subscribers who are loving it. And if you're an author, that means that your books are being spotlighted or your interview is going out to hundreds of people. So every time somebody hears that us talk about your book or, those kind of things, then that's another opportunity to think, that might be something.
And tell us about, you were telling me about some of the stats for our podcast.
Yes, we have had 10,000 downloads of the podcast.
Woo! That is amazing. That is so many. Amazing. Thank you so much to our listeners. 10, you are all amazing.
That's pretty damn good. Yes, yes. That is fantastic. So, and we have to say thank you to, the fabulous Darren Cass and Co, who started the podcast with me a while back. Not that long ago. We're only we're in season 2 now. We've got 100 a season, which took us a bit over a year and a bit. But anyway, so 10,000 downloads is good. And we have people subscribed on YouTube. You can listen to us or watch us on YouTube if you like to see the colour and movement. We can listen and watch on Spotify. We're on Apple. We're on iHeart and all of those other podcasting platforms, and of course the fabulous Buzzsprout, who is our hosting platform, and they make it very easy for podcasters to put up their material, and lots of good help there. So thank you to Buzzsprout, even though we still have to pay for that. Anyway,
so let's get into this interview. I can't wait to share Catherine's interview with you. I hope you all really enjoy our chat, and just let us take it away. Book lovers, I am delighted to have with me today Catherine McNamara, author of, and I've actually written these down because there's a few, so author of The Carnal Fugues, Love Stories for Hectic People, The Cartography of Others, and Pelt and Other Stories. And I'm really fascinated to get really into the details in regard to the short story collection. So before I waffle on, because I will, hello, Catherine. So good to have you on the podcast.
Hi there, Laurie, and thank you for having me.
You are welcome. We are looking forward to this one. So I'm coming to you, listeners, from my usual place of Wurundjeri Wurrung country in Victoria. So where are you today, Catherine?
Oh, today I'm in Veneto, so I'm in the northeast of Italy.
That is amazing. So it's during the day as opposed to my evening over here?
It's in the morning. It's sort of coffee time.
Is it hot over there at the moment? Because we've got very chilly, rainy weather at the moment.
I feel as though the summer is ending. It's it's starting to become cooler. So yeah, it's a bit sad.
It's interesting. It gives you a real tone, doesn't it, when the weather starts to change?
Yes, it does.
So how long have you been in Italy?
Oh gosh, it's I've been here for at least 20 years this time around, but I've moved a lot since I was very young.
Yes, and I will actually read your bio shortly because it is absolutely fascinating to me. So we will get to that. But you know what? Let's just start off with, so you publish short stories. How did that come about?
I've always loved reading. I read a lot when I was a kid, and I read everything: poetry, short stories, novels, everything, like anybody who loves books does. And I fell in love with Catherine Mansfield's short stories, and they were the first form that I began to sort of find my feet. I mean, the short story form, and the first works that I published were actually short stories, although I published some poems too, but I'm not a poet. And I just love exploring people's psyches, wherever they are, whatever they're doing, and what keeps people together and what drives them apart. So I think and I love language, and I think within the short story it's so sort of intense and compressed that you can sort of show off your style or develop a style. You have a voice. I mean, because it's a shorter form. I don't know. It's just for me.
Well, I write a bit of flash fiction and short stories and a couple of novels. So I'm really fascinated to talk to you in regard to the short stories and what you find the strengths really in that shorter form.
That's a good question, because a lot of people ask me this question in any case, because I have ended up writing flash fiction and also short stories, always loving the short story form. Flash fiction, I'll tell you how I fell into it, because I really fall into it. I had a short story published in a print magazine called Litro in the UK, and I went over to do a reading, because to get experience, I've always said yes whenever anybody asks me to come and do a reading, because it's good to sort of get a sense of the public. It's good. It's actually really satisfying to read your work out loud at the end of the day. It's terrifying, but satisfying at the same time. And the guy who ran the joint, I mean, he still runs the magazine and everything. He asked me to be flash fiction editor of the magazine, even though I was there with a short story and I read my short story to the audience. He said, well, how would you like to do this? And of course I said yes. Because the way that I live is quite isolated from English language and English publishing, and living in the country in Italy. So I've actually been on the team now for 7 or 8 years as flash fiction editor.
Oh, wow.
And flash fiction, I began to understand, is not really a short story. It is a short story in what it attempts to achieve, but it's that much more compressed.
Yep.
And there's that much more risk involved, because you're only working with, I don't know, anything from 200 to 1,000 words. So you can't put a single foot wrong, a comma wrong. I mean, everything has to be. So to sort of get my feet with that, I decided I was having a really difficult year with my youngest teenager. And so I made who I was driving to school so he would not get into mischief. So I would come home very cranky, because Italian driving, people making gestures and angry men on the way to work. And I would come home, fire, and write a story every morning. And so that's how I wrote Love Stories for Hectic People, which is only flash fiction. So I'd write a 500-word story and really push myself and try different voices, because that's the beauty of the flash fiction form. You can it's really elastic, and you can show all of your skills. You can be really agile. Whereas with the short story, there has to be some sort of premise. There has to be a bit more of a dance with the reader, because you've got 5,000 words, 10,000 words, however many you want to. So you've got to sort of prove something, show something, develop something. So they're different. They're completely different. And I'd like to hear about your flash fiction stories too.
It's funny. I actually write 100-word flash fiction, and I've been doing that for about 5 years, every single week. And
nice.
Initially started that as a really fun way of just keeping the writing going and to have that flexibility. But I've found over time that I've really become far more concise with my language and the storytelling that I do. And I think it's one of the best workshopping activities that you can really work on. And I know you run a lot of workshops, so I'm hoping to ask you a couple of questions about that very shortly too. But let me just jump in. I want to read your bio, because you have such a wonderful story. So let me read your bio. So Catherine McNamara grew up in Sydney, ran away to Paris to write, and ended up in West Africa co-running a bar. She was an embassy secretary in pre-war Mogadishu, which must have been amazing, and has worked as an au pair, graphic designer, art gallery manager, teacher, translator, and shoe model, which is an interesting one to throw in there. So praised by Hilary Mantel, her short story collection, The Cartography of Others, was a finalist in the People's Book Prize 2019 to 20, which of course, as we all know, was a crazy year, was awarded grand prize in the Islands International Book Awards, and listed on the Literary Sofa's Best of 2018 reads. Her book Pelt and Other Stories was longlisted for the Frank O'Connor Award and semi-finalist in the Hudson Prize USA. That's amazing. Her short stories and flash fiction have been Pushcart nominated and published widely in the UK, Europe, USA, and Australia. Her flash short fiction collection, Love Stories for Hectic People, came out in March in 2021 and won Best Short Collection category for the Saboteur Awards. I can never say that right properly. 2021. It has also been awarded an Indie Books We Love sticker by Love Reading. And Catherine was a guest editor for the Best Small Fictions Anthology 2023. A bumper selection of her short stories and flash fiction, The Carnal Fugues, came out with Puncher and Watman in Australia in October 2023, where it was presented at the Australian Short Story Festival, dreams, and received glowing reviews in the Sydney Morning Herald and Australian Book Review. Catherine speaks Italian and French and lives in Veneto. Was that Veneto? Veneto, Italy.
That's okay.
Where she hosts summer retreats for writers and artists in her African art-filled farmhouse. She is a writing mentor and coach and flash fiction editor for Litro magazine. Wow, that is quite a book history there. Well, just a history.
Yeah, sometimes I don't know how I ever wrote anything.
Shoe model. I need to know. Shoe model. Tell me more.
Oh, shoe model. Oh, my best mate had a fashion company, and so I would do the trade fairs and have to. And my feet are okay, so I would just walk around with really nice shoes on.
It's a bit of a dream, really, being able to wear fancy shoes all the time.
Yes, lots of champagne was involved as well, so that's also pretty good.
That's not a bad little bit of life there. And so Italy. Yeah. I've traveled in Italy and it is absolutely stunning, absolutely gorgeous. What's your scenery like, your day-to-day scenery like out there?
Well, I'm the place where I raise my kids is in the countryside, and that's very simple. And that's what's happened. They've all gone, obviously. And so thank God. I'm not an Italian mother. I was fine when everyone said they were going. One of them's actually in Australia. He's come out to Australia and he's based there. That was always his dream. So every opportunity that I have to come to Australia, that includes seeing him. So that's fantastic. That's fantastic. That makes me very happy. But otherwise, I'm surrounded by vineyards and it's rural. I don't have any neighbours, but there are tractors going past and there are pesticides. It's not all idyllic.
Okay.
it's not all idyllic, but I spend a lot of time in Venice because Venice is about an hour away, and that's sort of where I go to for culture, if you like, events, art events, music, and just the vibe. It's completely different from the countryside, obviously.
Do you do any readings there?
I have done a reading in Venice. You see, Venice has the tourist scene, which you need to ignore, but then it has its own very vibrant sort of city life, and there are a lot of events. But we'll see if we get the Carnal Fugues translated into Italian, and that will give me a leg in. Because
did you read it in Italian?
I haven't translated it. I actually haven't translated it. And when I did the reading, it was for the cartography of others, and I did it in English. It was in a bookshop that's quite well known, and so there's a lot of English-speaking people.
Oh,
and
lovely.
I actually dragged my daughter along to sing because she's a soprano, and one of the songs has the name of an aria. I borrowed the name of an aria for one of the titles of one of the short stories.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, make them work.
Yeah, why not? Absolutely. So
but otherwise it's quite, you go, sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, so you I know you also run some workshops from your spot there. That must be extraordinary for the people staying with you.
It's really good. In the beginning it was my dream to do something like this because I didn't want to too much solitude. I mean, we decided that the house it's fair enough to use it for guests, and I began teaching more during COVID. That's when I became to sort of feel confident teaching people and mentoring people. I've done editing for years and years and years, so I'm very sort of fast with that, and I'm very fast with critiquing work because I've always done, that's what I do on the side, editing and critiquing. But the idea of having people here, the thing that the way that it's set up is people come here more for an experience rather than class. So they come here usually with a project and editing a book or starting a book or pulling apart a book, and they'll work, and I will just take them around, do a bit of touring, but easy touring and cool touring, not sort of tourism where everybody else goes, and feed them and just let them work. Because I know as a writer with kids, you know how hard it is to cut out your writing time and sort of clear the deck and have, mental space where you're not worrying about feeding people, paying bills. I mean, where you can just sit down and have, space with your words and with your concepts. So that's what I wanted to offer people. So it's quite intense for the people who come here, but I have women mostly and from different places in the world. Australian Americans, people from India, people from Kenya, people from England, people from Ireland, and everybody seems to bring something special to me, as well as me giving as much as I can to them and sort of tailoring everything according to what people really want to get out of, staying in Italy, what they've seen, what they're sick of, what they'd like to try. So I can only do it to enjoy myself. It's not like I'm running a business to rake in the money. That's not it. Because being a writer, you're already used to being sort of virtually moneyless.
Yes.
So it's not an obsession of mine, really.
And it's amazing that the writing world, we tend to be quite giving anyway and giving of perhaps stupidly saying yes to everything, as you pointed out before, but helping each other. And that comes through with workshops and that sort of thing as well, where hearing
but
other
what I really think, and this goes back, just go back to something you asked me and I didn't have an answer for. You said, what's one of the best piece of writing advice that you've received? And this is not specific to writing. It's really the energy that you put in, you're going to get it back. So just keep the energy going. And so giving energy to people, encourage them with work. That's what I see. Because I felt very lonely when I was a young writer, and I'm talking pre-internet. I'm talking prehistoric writing.
Yep. I remember those days.
I felt very lonely and without guidance. And also I was living in Somalia, for goodness sakes. So, very different working condition. And the same in Ghana. I also lived for 10 years in Ghana, and that was also a very different sort of work setup and life setup for me at that point in any case. So that's what I lacked, really, guidance. And so the little bit that I've learned, I'm really happy to I don't know, share, stimulate, trigger things within people, because we all have it inside of ourselves, don't we? We have the stories, we have the words, we have the experiences, we just need the tenacity, and sometimes we need a little nudge, I think.
Yes, and to stop procrastinating. So
yeah. No. I'm actually very disciplined because I did piano for a million years. So I was up at 6 practicing the piano and driving everyone crazy. So I do believe discipline's key. Yes, it is.
I was actually going to ask, so what is your general writing day like?
Okay, this doesn't sound very official or serious, but in winter, and it gets very cold in this house, I write in bed. What's the point? Heating is an issue in Europe, and I look after my back, obviously, but writing in bed is the best place in the world. I know a lot of writers who do it. I know it sounds terrible.
No, there's something about comfort and warmth, isn't there? Comfort and warmth.
And changing position and then having a coffee, and then I'm productive, like I work, but I do have an office with a chair and normal things, and I go there to do lesson planning more than anything else, or edits, because edits require a different type of energy.
Now, isn't that interesting that your more creative side comes through relaxing, comfort, warmth, but when you have to put the hat on to fix things, that you put yourself into a more, a professional setting, but you know what I mean. So that's actually quite interesting. Yeah.
I think that's probably how it goes. I can't write in cafes like some people can. I know. I really can't do that. I had a story deadline once. I was teaching, because I had a really lovely teaching gig in the south of Spain for a couple of winters over COVID or after COVID. And I'd said yes to a story for an English magazine, and the editor, who's a friend, said, "Do you have a Christmas story?" And I'm not really a Christmassy person, but of course I said yes. Of course I did. I'm a Christmassy type of person if I have to be. So I had a story. Actually, I didn't have a story. At the time that I said yes, I had one line of a story and perhaps sort of half a paragraph. And then I was teaching 10 people in a village in Spain, and they were all giving me work, to read. And I swear I had so much work that all of the characters were all mulched together in my head. And I was thinking, wait a minute, which story is this character in? Anyway, I was managing to write 2 sentences a day, and I got to the end of the story, and the last paragraph, which is always scary because you don't want to mess up the whole thing you've invested, and the energy has to be right, you hit the right note, otherwise, waste of time. And I had to hand it in, and I ended up writing the conclusion sitting in a really noisy cafe in where I was in Spain. It was in Malaga in Spain before I was heading out to go to the airport, with 2 people from Naples like screaming next to me. And I can understand the Italian. It's okay if you don't understand the language because you don't listen, but if you can understand, you're half following. But anyway, I did it. That's my only cafe experience.
Wow.
Really. Otherwise, it's not for me. I'm not precious as precious as I used to be about writing, but if you give me a week, 10 days, and if I have an idea, I can produce a short story. I did that between guests this summer because I was really a bit frantic because I hadn't written a story that I loved, and I had another request for a story. So you can do it. You can do it if you put your mind to it.
How do you spur yourself into that mindset? How do you find that story?
I wait until it hits me. I'll have an idea, and it'll be a character or a title or a first sentence, but I never go ahead until the energy feels right, because you don't want to write something mediocre. You don't want to write a story for the sake of writing a story. Like, I don't believe this writing 1,000 words a day thing. I don't believe that. Because if you write 1,000 bad words, then you just have to edit them and unpick them and change them into something else, and that's really hard work.
Yeah.
So I think train your inner editor, and I think Flash, as you said, is a really good sort of exercise ground for understanding how you think, how you actually think, and how you actually put words together. Because in Flash, you really have to understand sort of the nuts and bolts of the story from the first letter, the first sound of that story. You've got to understand where the hell you're going.
Oh, so that's so beautifully put. I think you're absolutely spot on with all of that. Yeah. Just before I jump into my next question, I'm going to read the blurb of the fabulous The Carnal Fugues. So this sounds absolutely fascinating. So The Carnal Fugues is a wayward, wanton selection of short and shorter stories grounded in displacement, desire, and the wish coursing through us to accede to the state of love. So there is torment and illness, crude reality and distant fragrant places, peopled by characters that reside close to our bones, our psyches, our flesh. A Japanese soprano has lost her voice and seeks repose on a sailing boat in Corsica. A South African advertising executive learns the ropes at his Accra office. Destructive lovers interview a renowned musician in dusty Bamako. In London, a Rome-based man happens upon a woman from the past, bringing back a passionate interlude he has hidden from himself. Lovers meet, fade, delude. We are weak and defiant beings, ever learning, ever lustful. And I actually want to point out that Bruce, I want to mention Bruce Pascoe. So you had the most amazing review compliment. It's just lovely. And how does that sort of feedback, and I'll read it in a second, but how's that feedback help you with your work?
Well, Bruce was there right in the beginning. I can't remember if I wrote that to you, but my first ever short story was published by Bruce Pascoe and Lynn Harwood in the Australian Short Stories series when I was living in Somalia and sending everything by post. I mean, so the fact that he was there, even in the beginning, just recognizing, okay, this story is worth printing. That's big for any writer. Everybody remembers that moment. That's gold. Yeah. And so to appeal to him so many decades later, really, and ask for a comment about this book. I didn't even know if he would remember me or if he would have time or anything like that. But he was very generous, and no, it really sort of hits you in the heart. When you're down, these are the comments that you go to. I mean, really. really, because there's so much rejection involved in writing. It's rejection more than anything else, really. And it goes on. There's at no point, and I don't think you should anyhow, there's at no point where you think, right, I've got this.
Yep.
That's garbage. It's just like, okay, well, that one worked, and now, oh my God, what am I doing? You know, it's on to the next one. But his comment, yeah, it's gold. Like I said, you hold them close. Absolutely. You really, really do.
Yeah. So he said, strange, often unsettling. McNamara's stories depict multiple countries, characters, and cultures in awry and challenging ways. If they share anything, it's the knowledge that each of us can be undone in a heartbeat. That line, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So tell me more about the stories you choose to write.
Well, these stories, they're collected over, you know, from a series of quite a few years now. And I guess there's a lot about sensuality. There's a lot about displacement. There's a lot about people trying to find what they mean to each other, trying to see themselves within other people. I mean, the distance between people and the closeness between people. And like, as you just read, I mean, there's quite a bit about illness and about travel. I don't know. I'm always listening to things and listening to people and wondering about people. I still wonder about people who I saw on the train years ago, you know, or the people you see in buses. And I'm always thinking about people's stories. And I really like talking and listening to people. Like, I like being in conversation. I think humanity has sort of suffered continuous blows lately through technology, and actually taking part in a conversation and having a point of view and having an exchange that goes on and that goes somewhere. I think these are really important things that we really shouldn't lose, and trying to understand what's, you know, inside. I mean, our basic humanity. I think we don't slow down enough, and the beauty of reading, I think, is that you slow down to the page, to the word, and that's something that, you know, we need to hold on to. We really do.
And do you
I don't know if that answers the question.
Oh no, I love it. It actually puts me in my, so with flash fiction. So the way the world really is today, it's everything is consumed in such small bites. It's I want it quickly, I want it fast, I want it short, I want it sharp. All those sorts of, you know, your TikToks are very short, sharp, 30-second scenes. So do you find that with your flash fiction and with your short stories that there is far more of an appetite these days? Perhaps maybe it was always there. I don't know.
No, I think there are some writers in the past who've managed to sort of craft their works weaving flash with short fiction. I mean, Laurie Moore. I mean, there's a history of people doing that. But on a bigger scale, I'm talking about English language markets, because I don't know so much about many other countries. But I think the taste is different in different countries. I'm thinking Australia, New Zealand, and England, and the USA, obviously. I think there's different energy in each market. And because I'm living abroad, I do have to get to know the different markets. And also because I work with a magazine, so I'm receiving submissions from different parts of the globe, and not only the countries that I just mentioned. I mean, I get a lot of stories from Asia, I get a lot of stories from West Africa. So I'm really sort of feeling the vibe, you know, internationally, if you like.
Back to it. So tell me then, how much research is involved in your works?
It depends, because some I'm a bit afraid of doing anything that's sort of close to historical fiction, because I think it's so hard to be accurate, and how can we really, really, really understand what was going through people's heads? Because I honestly think the wiring of our brains has changed over the past 20 years. Usually I write the story, and then afterwards I do the research. Like, for example, one of my sons is a history geek, and I wrote a story, and it must have had some reference to Ethiopia. And he said, "Mom, oh my God, please don't make me tell you the basics about Ethiopian and Italian history." So yeah, I sort of embarrass myself in that way.
Okay.
And yeah, I don't set out doing things that that are going to be really challenging and that I don't think I can pull off. And probably, as I think I said to you before, I'll do the research and then it won't even crop up.
Yep.
It'll be some sort of impulse. You know how you go down those sort of Warren rabbit holes and you read everything about a certain composer and, you know, what was his favorite color and what was his wife's middle name and stuff like that. And then what? You don't even use anything.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I do that a bit, I think, yes.
So does that also fall in with your, do you plot out your short pieces? Do you have your beginning and you know where it's going to end? And no?
No, with the short story, if I start writing notes with an idea of an end, I'll definitely go the other way. Definitely. I mean, for me, the magic happens on the page, and the magic happens in the act of writing with a short story. I'm up for anything. I want to be surprised. And Robert Frost actually said that. No surprise for the writer, no surprise for the reader, no tears for the writer, no tears for the reader. So I sort of operate like that with short stories. I get into a sort of zone and quite capable of wearing my pajamas for 3 days, 5 days until I get to the bottom of the story.
Wow.
Don't
so
always
you write
know
in
what
one.
the story's
you
about.
write in one hit for
Yes.
3 days straight. Wow.
I find it really hard to have interruptions and get very angry with myself if I go out and get drunk and something, and the next day I can't sort of perform, if you like, on the page. But sometimes, yeah, life, God. I mean, with a novel it's different because I finished a novel now, and I really do think you need to plot. For me. Maybe everybody's different, but I tend to be too wordy, and I sort of go off following the character on the bus instead of sticking to the theme and thinking about the reader. So yeah, I need to plot for novels, but not for short stories.
So now that you've written a novel, which is the preferred method of writing, do you think? Do you prefer the short fiction? Did you now fall in love with writing a novel?
I wouldn't say that. I think novels are really tough because you need staying power, you need belief, you need I think they're really tough, and I think my brain is too sort of coiled up, and I need the energy to come out, and I think that happens with a short story. I'm sort of reasonably comfortable with the form, and I think I know my weaknesses and I know my strengths. And with the novel, no, I really enjoyed doing it. It was something that I really believed in, and well, it's not there yet. I'm still doing it, and I have another idea which I want to start in the winter. The winter's very good here for. You see, the weather's too good in Australia. That's the problem. Because here,
I am way down south. We have terrible weather.
Oh, okay. Oh, then come on over. But I mean, here winter is really, really, really long. And when I say I get up and light the fire, I'm not joking. I'm not trying to sort of sugarcoat anything. I light the fire because I'm cold. Okay. And that's the first thing, or that's what I try and do, keep the fire going. And yeah, is there wood? I mean, that type of thing. Like my kids won't come down here unless the heating's on, because I'm used to it. I'm quite used to it, and I do like the cold, and then I think it is great for writing. And yeah, summer's different. Summer, I'm starting to put everything into my writing retreats, really. So
okay. Oh, I had a question. Workshopping. I definitely want to talk about the workshops. But when you give advice to writers, so they come to your workshop looking for that something, whatever it might be, how do you encourage them to really get into their zone, to write from here?
Well, when I do the online flash fiction courses, I start the course. It's a 4-week course, and I start the course with all of the basic things that you talk about flash fiction, so that people think, yeah, that makes sense. I get that. But then I give them prompts. I think prompts it. And
I love a
then
good prompt.
what I really, really like to do is critique. So from the prompt, people usually produce something. And throughout the 4 weeks of the course, they'll be sending me their stuff privately, and which we'll work on, which I'll critique. And so they can improve. And so I can, because I think courses are only ever any use really if I, as a teacher, understand you as a writer and what your objectives are, what you're afraid of, and what you're good at. So I try and make it into the course. The classes are usually small, and try and work out what people, to sort of egg them on and encourage them, and really to have something that's submittable by the end of the course. And when people come here, because the house is big enough to have maybe 3 people who I've had sort of people who know each other, people who are already in writing groups, and they'll come and they'll stay and then we'll have sessions here, and that will be the same thing. And then in the evening we'll read to each other and sort of see what they produce. So it's really I don't know, I'm not an academic. I teach in a very hands-on way, and it's all through experience learned, and all of those many lessons you learn through rejection and reading magazines and reading submissions. So
everyone's got such totally different ways of seeing the world. That's what I love about a prompt, where you can have, say, a photo prompt, but everyone will see something different.
Isn't it great?
It's extraordinary. I absolutely love it. So you also talk about resilience with your workshops. So what do you go into there?
I try and be really honest that you're going to get more rejections than acceptances. Just try and be really, really honest, because I've taught classes with master, at universities, because they always bring me in as, Kat who's hands-on, and that's fine, because I'm not an academic, as I say. I don't mind it at all, and they like to hear, so how did you get this book published? And so I'm quite happy to talk about that. And I've been really surprised by people who are, they're students or mature age students, and they're at, master's or PhD level, and they haven't submitted. Like, they haven't been through that whole long process that I've been doing for a million years now. And I think it's a huge part of writing. You don't just write a book, get an agent, and get the Netflix deal. That's like, who does that? Who? One in a gazillion people that happens to, and good luck to them. But that's not real. So what I say to people with regard to resilience is, you've got to know what's out there. You've got to know magazines. You've got to know who else is in your field, whose work you admire, and get online and encourage and put out good comments, good energy, read other people's work. Don't be tone deaf. I mean, know what's happening in your field. And I don't mean, because we're all online now, I mean, that's international. So that means there are so many magazines out there in all sorts of different countries. So get online and work out what sort of level corresponds with where you are. Like, know your work and know the work that they ask for. Don't send stuff to the New Yorker and stuff like that. No, unless you have reason to, and good luck to you there too, for goodness sakes. But I mean, just expect, and what I tell people, my secret resilience tool is to aim for 100 rejections per, especially with Flash. This is possible. So if you aim for 100, and percentage-wise, you're going to get, it depends how good you are, 25% to 50% acceptances. That depends. And the more you send out, the more chances you have of being accepted. And when you get a rejection, try and understand, okay, normally you'll get a template. You won't get a critique, because editors are not paid most of the time. So they don't have the time to sit down there and say what didn't work with the story. But if you ever do get a critique from someone, listen to it, rework it. But I think the main thing is to keep reading. And if you're down, if you get a big rejection for something you really, really, really invested in, you're allowed to be depressed. That's fine.
I usually, the first time I get my edit letter back, I have a good 3 days, and I have a good cry, and I have a glass of wine, and I have a bath, and then I can get back into it. Yeah, it helps you sort of.
Yeah, you've got to go down. It's fine. You've got to accept. Somebody didn't like your work. Okay, you've got to deal with it. I go for a hike, go and have my cry on the mountain, because I live near a great big sort of mountainy hill thing. And then that's where I do all of my, you know, my weeping. And mountain gives me a hug, and then I come home.
It's a great way to put it. It is a good way to put it, because I do find after a couple of days you can start to shift and then look at it from that editor brain point of view of, okay, how do I fix this? How do I change this? How do I tweak it? Whatever it might be.
Yeah, and that's really important, putting on that other hat and looking at your work from afar. I don't know how you feel about sharing work or writing groups or anything like that. That's all personal, I think. Whether you share, whether you ask, but for me, I need to believe myself, need to believe in myself as an editor. And I do show work sometimes to other writing friends, but then you'll get somebody who says it's great, and the next, for exactly the same story, they'll say, well, why did you do this? Why do they have names? And you're like, forget it. Who am I writing for?
Yeah.
So you've got to be careful.
That's well put. So what have you learned on your writing journey?
Everybody has a story. Everybody has a story inside. Everybody has a story inside. And it's beautiful to find people's stories. It's exciting to actually orchestrate characters on the page. That for me is just a thrill. I really get a big kick out of seeing what happens when I put people's energy together. And I don't know, I just want to keep on reading, keep on publishing if things go well, and keep on writing. I mean, that's all. The good thing about writing is you can sort of write on a low budget if you work your life that way. It's not as if you need a big infrastructure or anything like that. Write in bed. There you are. Heating solved. Wardrobe solved. So, be practical.
So tell me, is there one of your flash fiction pieces or short stories that that drives you crazy, that either you couldn't get wrong, or you just don't feel like it ever hit the mark that you wanted it to hit? Is there anything that has literally driven you into the ground, so to speak, with one of your pieces?
I don't know. I'm pretty, like, if I really thought that it was a fail, I'd toss it.
Yep.
Really. I don't believe in wrangling with something that's a fail. If it's a fail, ciao. Get another idea.
Yep.
So if there was something that I didn't think had the goods, I would throw it away. Really. I have no qualms in throwing away work that's mediocre or below par, or it doesn't have something magic going on. Yeah. So I mean, maybe if people read my work, they'll say, oh my God, this one's awful. That's true also. Yep.
Do you take long to make that? Like, do you stick with it for a little while and then go, nah, it's not working, it's out?
No, I'm pretty quick to make these decisions. Yeah, because first paragraph's important. If the first paragraph is not grabbing you, no, I've chucked away stories. Yeah, that weren't strong enough.
Yep.
Really. So there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's better to throw away something and persevere with something that's mediocre and put it out there and get angry because it doesn't get published. I mean, come on, just do good to yourself. I mean, give yourself a break.
That's some really good advice.
But yeah, you've got to be kind to yourself because it's really, like I said before, my daughter's an opera singer, and I think that is the next level of difficulty and challenge, because your instrument is your body and you're on the stage. I mean, by the time a writer gets on the stage with work, it's already published, so you've already had some sort of affirmation. So, somebody believes in it. And if my voice cracks, okay, my voice cracks. It's not me trying to carry the opera. So I think it's tough. I think it's really tough. But if this is what you wanted to do, then just get on with it. Really. Little rewards. I do believe in little rewards. So, yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. So where can people find you online? since you are tucked away over there in Italy?
I'm pretty noisy online, I think. I mean, I try not to be, but I do try and put stuff out there. I mean, on Facebook, I'm with my own name, and on Instagram and on Twitter, I'm Cat in Italy. I'm always Cat in Italy. That's easy. But my website is catherinemcnamara.com. And that has lots of photos.
And you've got some pieces on there as well that I spotted. So
yeah, there should be some links. Yeah, there's links.
Which is great.
I've got to upload my newest news. I haven't done that yet. But well, this one, the Carnal Fugues, has just been shortlisted for the Prime Minister's Award, Prime Minister's Literary Award.
Oh, that's fantastic! Congratulations!
I haven't put it up. Thank you. I haven't put that up on the website yet. I've put it on Twitter and Facebook.
Oh, so, that's marvelous. Well, congratulations to you for that. Well done. Oh, okay. So what is next for you?
Well, I'm coming out to Australia in a couple of weeks for the award ceremony in Canberra. So that's very exciting to come back. And then I have guests. So I have to come back here straight away. And then I'm coming back to Australia. I wish it were cheaper. Coming back to Australia for the Australian Short Story Festival.
Oh, really?
In Perth. Yeah, you should try and come to one.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic.
Who do flash and short stories. There's one I think it'll be in Adelaide next year, but this year it's in Perth.
Oh, lovely.
So I'm going to that. And then I've been invited to a festival in Bangalore. So I'm going to India.
Oh, wow. That'll be.
And then back here to lighting the fire and all that.
And back to writing, probably.
Yeah, I was supposed to write a story last week and I had COVID and my brain has still not recovered. So no story.
It is amazing how you need that focus. Focus helps.
Yeah. I think it really it messes with your parameters or something. You don't really have balance and you don't get the emotions that, in a pure way. Everything's sort of a bit and it's very unpleasant. Anyway, it'll go. It's fine.
So any final words for potential writers or readers that may decide to pick up a pen?
Well, I've actually worked with a lot of people who call themselves, I'm only dabbling, I'm not really doing it. And you would be surprised the stuff that they're able to pull out with a simple prompt. So I'm not saying doing a course or prompts is the only way of learning, but I think, observe, try and tell a little story. But most of all, you have to just read and find out what you like. And then admire and then get ideas from other people, but then be yourself. The most important thing about good writing is having a voice. So that's what you notice about somebody who's writing you fall in love with. Wow, I love their voice. It's coming right at me. So think of that. But the other thing is don't expect to be writing, bestsellers within 6 months. It's a craft like anything. You've got to learn. You've got to get those rejections. And even if you write something for yourself, I mean, that's useful. I mean, if you want to journal or if you want to describe something, I mean, there are many ways of sort of getting into that way of thinking, really. Mostly slowing down and observing. I think that's step one.
Yeah.
And working out, do I have a story to tell? I think that you should always ask yourself, is this really worth writing down? Do I have a story here? I think all of us should be asking that, why am I doing this? And not stop and just aim high, but be humble and be honest with yourself. That's all.
I love that. That's fantastic. Now I'm hoping that you've got a little piece there that you might be able to read for us.
Yes. Wonderful. I'm going to read you a story. And I'm going to tell you, because it's really funny, where the name of the story came from.
Okay.
My daughter and her ex, they came running into the house one night. It was summer and they'd been to a restaurant and her boyfriend said, and you know what we had to eat? Trionfo di pesce. And in Italian, that means fish triumph. And that's insane, okay? Even in Italian, that's a very insane name for a dish.
Yeah.
And I said, right, I'm writing a story that's just called Fish Triumph. I love it. So that's where the title of the story came. In case you think I'm trying to be crazy or inventive or whatever, it's actually what they said running into the house.
I love it.
That's what it's called. So it's just a short one and a little bit amusing, but a little bit not. Trionfo di pesce. Helen and Marco are celebrating their second wedding anniversary with an outing to the new Italian fish restaurant. Marco, whose parents sailed out to Australia from Puglia, orders Trionfo di pesce, an extravagant mixed platter. At 54, unmarried, Marco had flown to Sydney to visit his brother. When at an inner city bus stop, he met Helen, a childless librarian. Now the couple is living in West Africa until Marco's contract runs out. Opposite sit friends Megan and Jeff, who have been married 34 years. Helen and Marco have not yet mastered the art of being touchy in front of other people. Helen's hands become faltering appendages, and Marco's arms feel like unbending steel rods. So they refrain from closeness in public, although Marco touches Helen's hand when the waitress waltzes away with their order and returns with a tray of thin-stemmed glasses. Helen looks at their clutching digits. Jeff is given the wine to taste. His quiff of ragged grey hair makes him seem the head of the table. Marco is bald. One of Jeff and Megan's 4 daughters has just been involved in a drug-related incident where she fell from a first-floor balcony onto a pool deck. Days ago, Megan flew in from Brisbane, assured that there would be no long-term spinal damage. Megan apologises for being a bit teary, and Jeff's large arm swings around her shoulders, patting her upper sleeve. Helen looks beyond their heads to other couples, other groups of diners, then through the window with its embellished security grill to a local man leaning on the balcony railing outside. At first, it had felt extraordinary to be a man's wife, but she found so much conversation draining. Marco refills everyone's glasses, remarking that the wine's a pretty good choice. So how does it feel then? 2 years of marriage, Megan says, nudging Greg's round abdomen. They're just babes in the woods. Marco looks at Helen. They were still reading each other's looks. Wonderful, she replies. He's just short of being a saint. Helen genuinely believes this. Marco brings her a cup of tea in bed in the morning. She doesn't always like his nuzzling, but tries to. Helen is fierce-looking with long, coarse, grey-blonde hair and has never much been interested in men or women. But Marco had struck her. He was only in Sydney for 2 weeks. She and Marco have a dream for when they leave West Africa, a little stone terrace in Puglia, the one he'd shown her that had belonged to his grandparents in a village by the lapping sea. They have both saved their money. They both like to fish. Helen believes that as he ages, Marco will chatter less and he will teach her Italian. Then in the afternoons, he will fall into serene silence in the sunlight. In the car park, the couples hug goodbye and Jeff's arm gathers Megan's shoulders. Helen and Marco stand side by side. Inside the car, Helen kisses him and kisses him.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yes.
I love the descriptions through that. That is absolutely beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
You could absolutely see every moment, which is what I love in any kind of writing, just placing yourself there and seeing and hearing what's going on in the room. So that was fantastic. Thank you for sharing that and for reading that for us.
Oh, thank you so much.
I hate to say it, but we've got to the end of our time. So once again, I'd like to thank you, Catherine McNamara, for joining the Australian Book Lovers podcast and for talking to us today. So I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day.
Thanks so much, Laurie. Thank you to everyone. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And thank you again to the wonderful Catherine McNamara for chatting with me. I do want to mention that what I believe the quote that I mentioned was actually from Susan Johnson rather than Bruce Pascoe. So that is my error. So I apologize for that, Catherine, but it's still an amazing quote. So I'm happy to go with it.
Very good. And what a great chat you had about so many things. I mean, living in Italy was, let's just move on quietly past that. Yes. But I love that, the flash fiction and the writing workshops. And look, talking about the writing workshops, there was a fabulous a quote that I thought, writing retreats and those kind of things. How good is that? It not only gives you time to kind of be there and do your creative stuff, but it means that you're not distracted by the housework or the television,
my queen procrastination tool, which is cleaning.
Yes.
But also being able to get out and walk around or just to chat to other writers that are in similar frustrated potentially.
Like the Venn diagram, that overlap, that you can actually focus on that overlap, which is fantastic. Yeah. And displacement and relationships she's talking about, and listening to people's stories. I'd say she's a great people watcher. And she imagines their story, and that she's imagined people she saw on the train years ago and wonders what they're doing with their lives. Yeah. How good is that? Yeah.
That's amazing. So, it was absolutely fabulous chat. Yeah. So thank you again, Catherine.
Yes, but especially for your fish triumph. I think that's a great story.
I know, right? It was a wonderful title. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah. So have a look at Catherine's stories, and particularly if you love short stories, she's got those anthologies and things happening. We need a quote, Laurie.
Yes, we do need a quote. So I went with short stories today. This is a quote from Ali Smith. Short stories consume you faster. They're connected to brevity. With the short story, you are up against mortality. I know how tough they are as a form, but they are also a total joy.
There you go.
So that was a really good quote. And I actually had a sneaky other one, which was actually from George R.R. Martin, which is hilarious to me because, of course, his Game of Thrones books are so huge.
Not short. No,
they are not short. But he has a quote, which is, start with short stories. After all, if you were taking up rock climbing, you wouldn't start with Mount Everest. So if you're starting fantasy, don't start with a 9-book series. And I think that's a good quote, not only from him, but also I think, and my little view and my little quote, I guess, from myself, I think the short form allows you to play in genres that you haven't perhaps written or wanted to write. But it also gives a reader a way to explore a new genre. So short stories are kind of a great jumping point if you want to try out sci-fi or fantasy or a romance or something that perhaps you is not your favorite genre, you prefer non-fiction, jump into a short story. It's a great way of getting a taste for a genre that maybe you'll find you're absolutely fascinated with and want to dive more into. And I think also you can try things more readily, and I think we're forgiven a little bit more readily in a short story piece. You can be creative and try different textiles or different points of view, or be a bit more experimental in a short story form, because it is a way that you can perhaps play in a genre that you haven't played for. So anyway, I find it a lot harder to write a short story than I do a novel. I think because I waffle.
Yes, well, me too. I think the shortest I've ever got was a novelette, which was still like about 5,000 words. But anyway, there you go.
Yeah.
All right. Luckily for you, I've got 2 quotes because I couldn't decide which one was the go. This is one of my absolute favourites from Gloria Steinem, who, is, of course, an American political activist, writer, lecturer, and, I just love her books. It's fantastic. Her quote is, "We teach what we need to learn and rewrite what we need to know."
Oh, nice.
I really love that.
I like that.
And, as a coach and a facilitator, leadership programs and all those kind of things, that is so often, what's happening. So our next interview, which will be in the next episode, And
little temptation, yes.
So no, I'll tell you, it's Andrea Pudding, and Andrea writes nonfiction, but she talks about compassionate prosperity and those kind of things. And it was really interesting talking about meaning and all of those things. That's just what I've been putting into the last workshop for the group of leaders that I'm working with at work, which is about positive meaning and all of those kind of things. So those synchronicities always, I think, are just absolutely fascinating how they come up.
Isn't it surprising the way they do?
Like we had short stories all the way through.
All the way through. That was not planned, people.
No.
Trust me.
No.
We do not plan that much in advance.
No. But anyway, so the fabulous Gloria Steinem is, of course, a prolific writer, and there's some brilliant books out there for everybody to read. Yeah. She's 90 now. That is just amazing. She's just a force of nature. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Just love her stuff. And still out there, sharing her work. All right. The other one is from Kate Elliott, who, of course, is a brilliant science fiction and fantasy writer, and is she's the nom de plume of Alice Rasmussen. She's an American writer as well. But she says, write all characters as human beings in all their glorious complexity and contradiction.
That's, yeah.
Isn't that fabulous?
And a good lesson to remember for our writing, because you do get perhaps swamped in a plot sometimes, or swamped in a twist, or let's throw in an action sequence. But remembering that people are people.
Yes.
They have the same fears, the same troubles, the same doubts.
And you'd be fascinated about it. And I think what Catherine was saying about her observing, and I thought, that's just spot on. And of course, then when I'm looking up Kate's website and everything else, I've then added 3 more books to let's check your series out. Bing, 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 onto the list.
Yep.
Talking about somebody who writes, huge Tolkien, like at times her Crown of Stars series, I think 7 books in that, just absolutely loved it. And it was just, complex and glorious in their contradiction. Brilliant.
Fantastic. I recently read, and this is one of our I can't read it, Transit Lounge books. Sorry, I was really tiny writing, which I've read recently, and so I thought I'd just do a quick review.
Beautiful.
If we can fit that in, do you think?
Absolutely.
Okay, let me find it, because let me tell you a bit about the book first. So,
okay.
As a young girl in Sydney, Rachel pays more attention than perhaps she should to a cartoon character who accesses different personas on separate adventures each time he goes into the changing room of a London costume shop. Then at an opportune moment, the owner of the shop taps the gentleman on the shoulder, excusing him to go back to being himself. In her early 20s, Rachel sets off for London with the aim of having a few adventures of her own. But unlike her childhood character, life irrevocably changes for Rachel once she leaves the safety and familiarity of home. Does she become the victim of a mysterious mental health illness while she's traveling in Israel and Egypt, or is something else at play? Rachel is forced to accept there is no coming back from some adventures, and that coming to terms with reality is perhaps her only real chance of accessing the life she craves most. So I'm a fiction and fantasy writer, science fiction and fantasy writer, but this is more of a contemporary novel. So it did require a bit of a brain shift for me while I was reading it. And I don't regularly read a lot of contemporary novels, but this was compelling in a way that I'm still thinking about. It's really fascinating. So perhaps it's all the 90s references scattered throughout the story, which, being the time I was also in my late teens, were incredibly familiar to me. So I was reading going, yep. And as were Rachel's doubts and fears and imposter syndrome. So her point of view in regard to her family and work issues sucked the reader in and remained consistent throughout, and therefore kept me hooked. I also travelled in my early 20s, not knowing what to expect and giving things a go. So again, the subject matter kept me reading. So this story delves into the mind of a young Australian woman travelling overseas for the first time. So I certainly connected with that. complete with missing my family and confusion over the self and learning who you are and who you want to be. So Rachel's adventures moved further than my own, and her experiences in Egypt and Israel were completely new to me. The innocence of young and cheap travel in a time without ready access to cell phones or the internet shines through in this story. Rachel feels truly isolated and alone, and as strangers take advantage of her or conversely take care of her, it's frightful to think about what could happen were someone to have dark intentions towards her. When everything is different from your own upbringing and experience, it is scary and at the same time exhilarating. But what happens when different is truly alien to your upbringing? Do you adjust and go with the flow, or does your brain rebel? So Rachel's mental health descent is subtle yet perfectly understandable when put into context with her foreign surrounds, as are her awakening memories of a past that her trauma has locked away. So if you like 90s history, yes, I really did just write that. 90s history. I just read that. Yep. It is history. Yep. It's 30 years ago. Yep. And from the point of view of an Australian backpacker living in hostels and temping jobs to get by with links to wider world events, then you'll enjoy this story. And if you enjoy a story about questionable mental health, innocence lost, or variations on commune living, then this would also be an enjoyable story for you. So it's a different and compelling tale, one that will leave you thinking. So it was a great little story.
So
really quite enjoyed that.
Changing Room.
So that's The Changing Room. Yes, by Belinda Cranston.
Fabulous. All right. Excellent. Thank you for reviewing that.
It's all right. It's been a while since I've done a good book review. So
yeah, that's good. But the fact that even though it's not your genre, it's still got you thinking about things.
Yes.
That's fantastic.
And I think that's why I like delving outside of my own genre occasionally. It does give you a different perspective and a different point of view, and gives you interesting ideas about writing as well. So yeah, I like to dip my toe out every now and then.
Very good. Very good. Okay. I think that's it. We both need to get on with our Saturday. Me to do a little bit of editing of this.
I was just going to say editing, but actually probably cleaning. So.
Yeah, all right. I'll admit there's a whole pile of clothes out on the table that yes, need folding up. But I can put an audio book on while I read, and I'm listening to the last of Sarah Barry, Australian crime author, her fiction Vendetta. I think I'm reading at the moment. So yes, they're about to blow something up, so I've got to get out there. The last
better get cleaning.
Yeah, which of course I listen to it about 1.25 speed because I haven't got time to listen to it really slowly. But yeah, I'm a terror for that. But I did teach my learners at work how to watch videos at an increased speed, and somebody came to me and said, "It changed my life. If I got nothing else, to be able to get through so much more stuff."
Yes. But how weird to have that sort of chipmunky feel with
yes.
with listening to the stories. That is marvelous.
Some narrators speak slowly and clearly, which is fantastic. But even speeding it up just a quarter, it's still really absolutely fine. So I know I'm bad, but anyway.
That's brilliant. There's too much to get through. It's
I haven't got time. I've got to get on. All right, and so we need to remind our listeners and watchers to do something. What is it that we need to remind them, Laurie?
We need to remember to
read more Aussie
books. Bye for now, everyone.
Bye.
Let's meet again, where magic happens.